Welcome everyone to In One Ear, local music news with Casey Warner. I'm privileged to be here with a very special guest today. I got Stu, the lead vocalist of Bihargam, with me. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. It's a pleasure to have you. Like I just mentioned, big show last night for Bihargam at Tidball's. I hate that I couldn't make it, but tell us a little bit about that show, man, and what it meant for you.
It was a good show. Josh and I play in Peter the Freshman, so we're pretty, familiar with Tidballs and playing shows there. So for us, it's just kind of another day at the office, but it's a little different because, Bowling Green doesn't have a very good heavy or metal scene in general. So whenever those shows do happen, it's nice to bring it, and it's nice to see people show up and dig it, because this isn't a city that's renowned for having a lot of good metal acts, but we had a good show last night. We had the local band Crush open for us, and they were good. They were tight, young guys. They actually couldn't stick around and watch us because they are not 21 yet, so they could perform, but they had to immediately leave. So
wow,
that kind of sucks. But it was a good opening band. The turnout was good. The reception was good. What it means to me seems a lot deeper than something I wasn't prepared to ponder. But I guess the short answer would be, considering the lack of bands in the area that play heavy metal, it's nice to be one of the few and maybe kind of get our foot in the door and kind of make way for some other groups to, start getting some shows or starting a band or whatever. It'd be nice to have an actual scene for that locally, as opposed to having to go to Louisville, Lexington, or Nashville or something like that.
For sure, totally. That's good points there about, the lack of heavy bands being in Bowling Green. And just to kind of get an idea for all the fans out there, and even me personally, because I don't know, what does Bihargam mean, and where did that name come from?
Well, Josh and I, more so than Chris and Scott. By the way, Josh is our guitar player, Scott's our drummer, Chris is our bass player. But Josh and I, more so than Chris and Scott, are pretty big comic book nerds. And Josh is really into this author named Alejandro Jodorowsky, I believe.
Okay, it's all good. I mean, I don't know who it is.
I think he's French/Argentinian, something like that. So really, Bihargam is just, it's a weapon mentioned in one of the comics, but it sounded cool, and it kind of, looking at it and trying to say it, it sounds like a metal band's name.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's where we actually get all the material for like lyrics and stuff so far, has just been basing it on Jodorowsky's work and some of the more compelling stories in his catalog. And so we don't really fit into the black metal stereotype of, the lyrics are, hailing Satan or, misanthropic, ideas. It's not really that at all. It's more of a just kind of reflecting a story that already exists.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a wicked name for me. Like, I know when I first saw it, I didn't even know what it meant, and I was like, wow, that's one of the coolest names I've ever seen. And you mentioned, the points of black metal usually being, so dark and stuff, and you all are so unique in how, you base your name off that and everything. So that's awesome. But coming up next, we got The Father Mother off of Bihargam's debut album, Castica. You're listening to In One Ear, local music news with Casey Warner. back here with Stu of Bihargam, the lead vocalist. Very happy to have him here. We're talking about black metal here. We're talking about all kinds of stuff by Bihargam. But, speaking of music and listening to stuff, what kind of stuff did you listen to starting out as a kid that got you so interested in making all this music?
That is a deep question.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have the time to really properly address. But
sure.
The Reader's Digest version would be, I was born in 81. So naturally, 80s music was very prominent in my upbringing. So I still love a lot of that today, 80s pop.
Okay.
I mean, the cheesier the better in some cases.
Oh, yeah.
When I was probably around 10 or 11, I started really paying more attention to the harder stuff. Like when I started, like for Christmas, I would ask for tapes because we had tapes back then.
Right.
And two of the first tapes I got were Ugly Kid Joe and Metallica's And Justice for All.
Ooh.
So that really kind of was my first step into getting into harder music. And from there, then the 90s happened and, grunge was all the thing. So, that was good too. And it had a bit of that bite that I liked. But
right.
I also kind of ventured out and discovered, a lot of good punk bands. So I started listening to more of that. A lot of good industrial bands. So I started getting into that. And, from high school to college, I really kind of started diving even deeper into actual metal and all the numerous subgenres that come along with it. And after that, I've kind of done what most old people do and just stopped listening to a lot of new stuff and just, stay nostalgic with the things I already love.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome stuff there, man. I mean, you mentioned, the visuals and everything. That really makes heavy metal music what it is. It's all about the look and the sound. But coming up next, we got the Shadow Egg and the Inanimate Son, both from Bihargam's new album, Ove Tenebrae. You're listening to In One Ear Local Music News with Casey Warner. back here with Stu, a vocalist of Bihargam heavy metal band here in Bowling Green. We got a few more questions for you, Stu, and then we're going to wrap things up. Tell us about some of your favorite parts about being in Bihargam and what being in such a unique band means to you.
Well, one of the things that when Josh and Chris and Scott and I started playing together that I noticed immediately was because Scott and Chris have a history. They've got their own band.
Right.
They've got Fornicus, which is basically just them two. So they've been around the block. They know, they've been in metal bands for a very long time. They are very knowledgeable about everything in the metal scene, really and truly. And a lot of times, because Josh and I don't come from that background as deep as they do, a lot of times we're kind of left letting them just kind of, make the decisions in terms of like, how should we approach this?
Right.
What's a good tactic? Like, because one thing I've noticed is in the metal scene, not even just locally, but everywhere, it's different than other music scenes.
Sure.
Like cassette tapes are a pretty big thing again now.
They're coming back, yeah.
And that's you see that a lot in metal bands, and that's pretty interesting. One thing I will say is that Scott and Chris, and this is another thing Josh and I have had to do a lot of adjusting toward, is that Chris and Scott have probably one of the best work ethics in terms of musicianship.
Absolutely.
That I've ever encountered. Whereas Josh and I have spent years like playing with people who's just like, oh, well, we'll show up 10 minutes late and it's not a big deal. And, time is more of the essence with Chris and Scott. So like,
right.
We try really hard not to be late for practice. Like it's and you get in there and, sometimes, you're playing with your friends. So there's always that, those moments where you're going to stop between songs and kind of, BS a little bit and, cut up. But we keep that to, we're all friends, but we do try to keep that to a minimum and stay focused on what we're working on. And that's a nice change of pace. It feels a lot more professional. It's always been, I've been playing music to some extent since I was like 13. My first instrument was a bass, and I just went from there. This is a new experience for me because I've been in heavier bands before and done backup vocals, so I knew I had the chops to do, the screaming and guttural vocals. One thing that's different is this is the first time I've been in a band where I am the front man. So, and I'm not playing an instrument. So,
oh wow, yeah, big role.
So I don't know what to do with my hands. that was difficult to work through. Just like I can't just stand here because that looks boring. So I got to move around. But what am I going to do with my hands? I'm not playing an instrument. So I've gotten used to that. It's always been, I don't want to say a dream of mine because that really romanticizes it and kind of makes it sound almost sappy. But it's always been a goal of mine to be the front man of a metal band.
Sure,
so
of course.
Even since when I was younger, it was just like that sounds like that would be the coolest thing ever. And I've experienced some things that are a bit cooler, but I do really enjoy it. And I try to stay humble with it and remind the guys pretty often, like, I really appreciate what you guys do. Like, I'm honored to be a part of it. That kind of thing. And, anytime I get at all sentimental, we're guys and we play in a metal band. So it's kind of like, you're fired, for being so soft. But, it's a good relationship. And we all kind of feel that, whether or not we are as outwardly vocal about it as I am.
Love it, man. That's good stuff there, Stu. It's been a pleasure interviewing you, and I always have a good time here on In One Ear Local Music with Casey Warner. It's always great to hear from these local musicians around the state, whether it be South Central Kentucky, E-Town, where this is airing, or anywhere. But it's always great to get all this information and kind of, just cut up and talk with everybody. It's awesome. But again, thank you, Stu, and we'll be talking to you here soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Coming up next, we got The Fool and The Seven, both from Bihargam's new album, O Tenebrae. You're listening to In One Ear Local Music News with Casey Warner.